and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of the streaming platforms, public access channels, the Kitty Rose lifestyle, or the program underwriters.
Tim's on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Bully face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy. Love sincerity, so I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically. Through hallways and alleys.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the next chapter where we discuss shades of gray. I am your host, Minister Cat, aka Kitty Rose, and welcome back to our second show at our new home here at La Centrale at our BronxNet studios located in the South Bronx. What did you guys think last week? I know every time I saw the show episode, I was excited and I was impressed. So let's get right into what our topic of the week is this week as we are making our way again in our new home. So this week's topic of a week. Okay, let's try that again. This week's topic of the week. You guys are ready? Okay, it's a mouthful. Here it is. As a parent, did I do enough? As a parent, did I do enough? This was very sentimental to me. I don't know if you guys have noticed that there's been a trend these last couple of weeks. From talking about raising adult children to talking about a life as an empty nester, it got me to thinking, have I done enough as a parent when it came to laying the foundation to my children? Now, as they're entering adulthood, I started to reflect on my own childhood and the directions that I led. And what really got me just thinking about this was a few years ago, my daughter was wearing a cross that she got from a friend of hers. And it got me like, my hands was raised like, oh my goodness, what are you doing walking around with a cross? Because my belief, from my perspective of Christianity is that Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, died on a stake up and down. During that time of crucifixions, they didn't kill people this way. They killed them this way. So according to the knowledge that I'm aware of, the cross is another idol that gets used. This is a touchy subject, gets used to manipulate because no one gives worship or reverence to a cross thinking that they're doing something wrong. So, i.e., when my daughter was given this gift, no way, with everything I've taught her up until then, did she think she was doing something wrong, because in our reverence to Christ being our Lord and Savior, that is our connection. And then not only is that our connection, but when it comes to, I don't want to say the Trinity, but the acknowledgement of God, the Holy Spirit, and Christ, those 3 points is sometimes what we use as reference. Again, not understanding the significance and the blur when it comes to worship and what and how we worship or give reverence. So in this technical explanation that I thought I gave my children growing up, I was bothered by her wearing a cross. But then the other part was her acknowledgement and reverence to Christ. And that was something, obviously, that I helped to instill, that love for Christ. So that's important. So when I started to reflect and think about my own childhood, I started to think about, I was raised in a very interesting, strict household. Even though I did some things and did some things my mother didn't know about, they were so far in between. for the most part, we went to school, we had our aftercare programs, and we came home. But I was raised really what folks might say the church. I was really raised in the Kingdom Hall. We had 5 meetings, 3 meetings a week. And then in between our meetings was study. And because my mother and father, for the short time that I had him, was into academics, between my secular studies and my spiritual studies, it really didn't leave room for much. I don't remember extracurricular activities after school, outside of daycare. When we grew out of that, we came home. I don't remember, my mother was active with us growing up, but my mother was active more with the things that she wanted to do, like play paddleball and take us to the park. But do I remember picnics? Do I remember throwing the ball at Central Park? I don't have those types of memories. I have a very rigid memory up until the age of 15 of school, family, Kingdom Hall, preaching. And I say all that to say that I am grateful that I had a foundation of Christianity, of Christ, of Jehovah in my life. But it didn't stop anything else. I still wandered. I still shoplift when I was like 11 down south. I stole from someone. I committed fornication at the age of 15. I actively started having sex at the age of 18. I never tried drugs. I've done some illegal activity along in my life. So all that strict upbringing didn't deter me from anything. It might have protected me on some level, but I still, I don't know, acted out, if that's even what I did. So when I started to do the research, thinking about my own childhood versus the childhood that I've given my children, it was Google, the Bible of information, was stating that it could be very painful to realize that the child that you have worked so hard to raise is not living up to their potential. Even more heartbreaking is the realization that you may not have had a very good relationship with them. Sometimes these issues can make you feel like you have failed. As parents, we tend to think that if anything goes wrong with our kids, it's our fault. Not only do we have the pressure that we put on ourselves, we may also have well-meaning family members and the rest of society sending us those same blaming messages. But it's more likely that you did the very best that you knew how to do at each junction of your child's life. Some things may have been more effective and some less effective, but you did your best. And I would have to say for the most, I can agree with that. Because when I now, hindsight, visually look at my 20-year-old, my 25-year-old, and my 28-year-old, I'm noticing, well, what kind of people have they become? So is there room for blame? I don't know. Let's discuss by going into our first video, which is the 4 most important choices you can make as a parent from Crystal Payne, Crystal Payne is not her. She's speaking on focus on the family. You guys can check that out more by going to, like I said, the 4 most important choices you can make as a parent. Let's check it out.
I wasn't doing enough. I was constantly going to bed psychoanalyzing and second-guessing myself. Oh, I should have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I respond like that? And I felt this weight on me of that it was never enough and that everyone else was doing it so much better than me. And I was just constantly failing my kids. And it was also that weight of my reputation. I cared so much what other people thought of me as a parent.
Yeah.
And it just was constant exhaustion and stress.
There was a moment where this kind of became the moment of awareness. I think you were dropping one of your children off at school and something went down that got your attention. What happened?
Yes. So it was about 4 years ago, and our kids were going to this little Christian school, and my husband was dropping the three of them off. And the principal met him and said, I need to meet with you and your wife and a specific child after school. And he came home and he told me this, and he's like, this is not good. Like, we just both felt like we don't know what this is about,
Right.
but something really bad is about to
Ominous.
go down. And we were just kind of trying to think through everything that had happened the last week, and we couldn't come up with what could this be. And the principal tells us that our child had done something that had broken the school's code of conduct and was very serious, and that swift action needed to be taken. And we were just really blindsided by the whole thing because it had just happened the day before. We thought everything was fine. Like, we had never, the day before, it was just a normal day. And our child had really hidden this from us, and then wasn't even willing to, in the principal's office, admit that they had done that. And it took a long time for our child to actually say, no, I did that. And so then we spent the next few weeks really meeting with families and unpacking and trying to figure out, what is going on? How did we miss this?
Right.
And finding out that there was so much more than just this one incident. And that's really hard as a parent, to feel like you've completely missed something that your child was really struggling with and had been struggling with for months. In fact, we found out that a lot of the other parents had been talking. A lot of them had gone to the principal, and that they had even labeled our child a bully, and we were clueless.
How many of you felt what she said? Let's recap. She talked about feelings of never feeling enough. She talked about feelings of thinking about your reputation more than maybe what's actually going on at home. Not knowing, thinking we know everything. I felt that one. Even when you're an involved parent, she wasn't a parent, two-parent household. She wasn't a parent that wasn't questioning or being aware of what she thought was going on in her household. But after further, I won't even say investigation, just more conversation where the child admitted eventually, yes, I'm actively involved in X, Y, and Z. What now becomes difficult is facing those issues up front, that one, you might have missed something, or two, okay, you caught something, you didn't miss it, now we can deal with it, but can we move away from the embarrassment of having to deal with it? I know as a parent, I've definitely have had situations where I thought I knew what was going on, two in particular. So growing up, my middle son, and this is another reason why this is a sensitive topic, because my children have asked not to be used anymore when it comes to discussing topics that face us as a society. But I can't help but use my own testimony of growth and awareness and understanding by showing you or telling you the examples that directly happened to me that unfortunately involves them. So I apologize to my children right now for being this vulnerable by sharing the following stories I'm getting ready to share. But I'm hoping, what's that thing? Ask for forgiveness later, that you will forgive me after, hopefully, the information I shared sheds some impact to other parents who have felt this way or who are feeling this way in the actual moment. So I remember when my middle son was in his freshman year in high school, and freshman year in high school is challenging and exciting because they're no longer like these little people anymore. Middle school is preparing them now for this middle phase of young adulthood. So, you know, at this point, he was doing softball, but now that he's in high school, that no longer was happening. So we hadn't put him in a program yet. And he got caught after school one day smoking weed. Now, when we found out that he was smoking weed right away, we were like, okay, he has too much time on his hands after school, let's do something other than having him have this free time. So collectively, we decided to put him in wrestling. So now he's more of an athlete because he did softball. Now he's doing wrestling. Those issues are now off the table because now he's actively involved in something that he has to stay health conscious about. So we were able to become aware of something even though we didn't know or even would have never assumed that our child, our perfect child, would partake in. But once finding out that he was involved in something, instead of feeling ashamed, oh my God, or in denial, no, not our son, we found a solution and took care of it. Let's go to a break. So that was one situation, and I said I had a second one for you. But I think that was the issue that I wanted to really like bring to home, is that sometimes we, like I said, could really think that we are these involved parents. Oh, I know what I wanted to say to you guys. So yeah, you could think that you're in this involved parent, and for the most part, you can be. But also, I found out later on, years later, you know, when we're having current family gatherings, right? Again, my children are 20, 25, and 28. So we're now, you know, whenever we have family gatherings, we sit around the kitchen table, as most families do, and we, you know, we reminisce on old times. And these kids of mine will talk about all of these stories of things that they did that I had no idea about. Things that they did to their sister, videos that they made on YouTube, things that they did. You know, my son says to me, my oldest son says to me the other day, yeah, you know, I'm not the problem. You know, I'm not going to tell you what situation was. But the point that I'm making is that you could be thinking that you're such an involved, you know everything, you know what time they're here, you know what time they're there, you got this schedule, they have to check in here, you have the the finder on your phone, like tracking, like all these things, and you can still miss something. So now, what is the point? The point is, I recently heard, you'll see it in one of the videos coming up, that we're not raising children, we're raising adults. And we started out saying that it becomes painful to realize that the work that you put in with them as children may not pan out as adults. So when I think about my childhood and now my result as an adult, my results as an adult, 110 comes from the foundation that was given to me as a child. So even though I might have went different directions in my life, I always still had a sense of what that foundation was in my servants, in my gratitude, in my reverence to the Creator. And that held me, that covered me, that protected me from not going all the way left. I committed a few, I can't even say that. I committed a few crimes instead of more crimes and becoming a criminal. You know what I'm saying? Not that becoming a criminal is any less than because I only committed 3 or 4. But the point that I'm making is that I could have done a whole lot more. But I want to show you guys the research in my second video, because the second video comes into the overall idea of what it is that we want when it comes to rearing our adults, because the name of this video is How to Raise Successful Kids Without Overparenting. Let's go. I'm going to break this up in 2 parts. Let's go to the first one.
Parents who aren't involved enough in the lives of their kids and their education or their upbringing, and rightly so. But at the other end of the spectrum, there's a lot of harm going on there as well, where parents feel a kid can't be successful unless the parent is protecting and preventing at every turn, and hovering over every happening, and micromanaging every moment, and steering their kid towards some small subset of colleges and careers. When we raise kids this way, and I'll say we, because Lord knows in raising my 2 teenagers, I've had these tendencies myself, our kids end up leading a kind of checklisted childhood. And here's what the checklisted childhood looks like. We keep them safe and sound and fed and watered. And then we want to be sure they go to the right schools, but not just that they're in the right classes at the right schools, and that they get the right grades in the right classes in the right schools. But not just the grades, the scores. And not just the grades and scores, but the accolades and the awards and the sports and the activities and the leadership. We tell our kids, don't just join a club, start a club, because colleges want to see that. And check the box for community service. I mean, show the colleges you care about others.
Did you hear yourself? Did you see yourself? How many of us saw ourselves in that description as this helicopter or overcompensating or overparenting or micromanaging your child's life? Woo! I know I saw myself. I think we create this picture-perfect checklist, and we put this pressure on our children, and then we put this pressure on ourselves. But how successful do we become? Let's go to the second half of the video.
Childhood providing a foundation for their success, built on things like love and chores. Did I just say chores? Did I just say chores? I really did. But really, here's why. The longest longitudinal study of humans ever conducted is called the Harvard Grant Study. It found that professional success in life, which is what we want for our kids, that professional success in life comes from having done chores as a kid. And the earlier you started, the better. That a roll up your sleeves and pitch in mindset, a mindset that says, there's some unpleasant work, someone's got to do it, it might as well be me. A mindset that says, I will contribute my effort to the betterment of the whole. That's what gets you ahead in the workplace. Now, we all know this. You know this. We all know this. And yet, in the checklisted childhood, we absolve our kids of doing the work of chores around the house. And then they end up as young adults in the workplace, still waiting for a checklist. But it doesn't exist. And more importantly, lacking the impulse, the instinct to roll up their sleeves and pitch in and look around and wonder, how can I be useful to my colleagues? How can I anticipate a few steps ahead to what my boss might need? A second very important finding from the Harvard Grant Study said that happiness in life comes from love. Not love of work, love of humans. Our spouse, our partner, our friends, our family. So childhood needs to teach our kids how to love, and they can't love others if they don't first love themselves, and they won't love themselves if we can't offer them unconditional love.
Yes, I agree. I agree. That was Julie Lifcott-Hames. And that was one of her TED Talks that she was doing, again, how to raise successful kids without overparenting. What I enjoyed about this video was giving our children the foundation, right? Because we're raising adults. So preparing them for chores. So we have this image of what we want to prepare them for, right? So we have like the catch-22. We're teaching our children almost this entitlement that all you got to do is work hard, all you got to do is study, all you got to do is work hard, all you got to do is study, all you got to do is work hard, all you got to do is study. And everything you want will come to you. But we forget about the other little things sometimes, like responsibility, i.e. chores. Giving them a sense of responsibility, giving them a sense of routine, giving them a sense of pulling up your sleeve and working as a unit in a household that just is not just about them. And even if it is just about them, having the tendencies now to be responsible for themselves in this household that they will eventually live in alone. How are we teaching them to contribute? Or are we teaching them to lack the impulse on how to be more useful because we've taught them to be self-centered? So now, again, my own reflection. When I thought about, as a parent, have I done enough? Because my daughter had a cross on. But now when I have a conversation with her and I hear how enlightened she is, especially in this particular point in her life where she's finishing up her last year in college, and her brothers are encouraging her that you're working too hard, you should just enjoy, you should party, you do this, and she's very tunnel vision and very focused of, no, this is what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna do it and why I'm gonna do it, but very clear at 20. When I have conversations with my son at 25 and he talks about, yes, last year in education was challenging for him, so he thought he might want to change the finance because he is a mathematician, he's good with numbers, and in a world where we're driven more by money, I can make more in finance. But he decided that's not what I want. I want to serve my community. I want to be a principal. So you know what? I'm going to come back to education and I'll put 2 or 3 years in that and set on my way to being a principal so that I can serve my community in that way. Service at 25. 20-year-old, focus to her ending, her beginning, her middle, what she wants, how her plan after school, what she's doing now, how she wants to do it, why she wants to do it. She told me the other day, she was like, I'm very money driven and I'm okay with that. But again, being okay with where she's at in life, because she was like, because I like the finer things. I like this, that, and the third. So I'm going to work in a career that allows me to do X, Y, and Z. I am not interested in partying. I'm not interested in doing that. You know what? I like my life at 20. And then we have my 28-year-old who is approaching 30. Still trying to find himself. But what I like about my oldest, what I'm encouraged about my oldest, is that in the finding yourself, I work hard. I go to work every day. I'm dedicated. I'm a good worker. I'm trustworthy. So whatever situation he ends up in, it's always a progressive one because he is good at what he does, because he follows through, and he innately is a good person with responsibility. Let's take a break.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour, walk a mile in my shoes, walk a mile in my shoes.
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because I felt like a failure. And then I realized, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
And I had to realize, about my children, how important chores actually was and chores are. Especially, when both my youngest children was going to college. Because that's really, the time that they're now on their own learning the skills that you've given them prior to going to college. And even my oldest boy, when he moved on his own. And what my daughter noticed and my son was that he lived with roommates that didn't know how to do their laundry. And we laugh all the time. We see this on television as a joke, that when kids bring their laundry home, or when, kids say, oh, I don't know how to, wash between my whites and my coloreds. We laugh. But that's a serious situation. I remember growing up, my grandmother and my aunt used to always get on my aunt about how she took care of herself during, the times we as women are changing through our seasons, and not being just throw it away, or just, not mindful of how we clean ourselves during these different times of the year, or different times of the month. And you would realize that you think that your parents are nitpicking you until you actually get to see in college or living on your own with roommates that, wow, learning responsibility actually was helpful, was useful, where you saw that for others that you would live with that did not get that upbringing because they were in a situation where that entitlement was present. Because sometimes parents, we're trying to do things different than the way our parents did it. We're trying to have less restrictions. We're trying to, not be their friend, but not necessarily be like this, this dictator over them the way that our parents. We're trying to, be lighter. And in being lighter and being more encouraging, you can do it. The world is yours. That's where that catch-22 of entitlement comes in, where when they get to a certain age where they don't know how to do something or they don't want to do something, they're like, well, I'll just hire someone, or I'll just bring it home to my mother, or I'll just, have my mom do it. And we end up paying the cost, and they end up paying the cost. Does that make sense? So this last video kind of wraps up what I was thinking, or how I was learning to adapt or even be okay with what I've done up until now. Because parenting has not stopped. But what up until now I've done as a parent so far. This last video is Michelle Obama, and she is talking about parenting, partnerships, and turning your rage into change. Check it out.
But you still have to be ready for your kids to evolve. Who they are at 4 and 7 is not what they need from you is very different from what they need from you as teenagers, and then again as young women. But if you've laid a foundation of trust and honesty, every stage I found is wonderful. It's full. It's exciting. I don't miss any stage. I loved every stage of parenting my girls, but I wouldn't go back to any of the stages. I don't long for the time when they were babies. I love that time. Breastfeeding, when you could sit and hold them and look at them forever. But now that they're young women, and now I'm less of a day-to-day manager and more of an advisor, there's a freedom to enjoy them as individuals, to watch them grow. And I think that's been the case for me and my mom as well.
With your girls, though, has that been comfortable for you, the idea of stepping back from that manager role and letting them lead, letting them be the people who make you and your husband, as you say, weak martinis when you come and visit their apartment? I couldn't stop laughing when I read that.
Well, it is a hard thing to do, to let your kids be. In this era of helicopter parenting, where I think parents are very, maybe overly involved in their kids' lives. I was raised to be handed my competence early. My mother raised her, as I write in the book, she says her job is to put herself out of a job early. So she started at a very early age, requiring us to be independent. As early as kindergarten, she gave us alarm clocks because she knew that we were capable of getting ourselves up. She wanted us to feel the power of our competence. So from 5 years old, I was setting an alarm. Soon thereafter, I was walking to school by myself. And what that does for a kid when your parent trusts you, you know, it it encourages you. It tells you that if my mom thinks I can do this, then I must be capable. And I've tried to instill that same kind of stand by the gate and watch your kids fly. Be there for them when they come back. Let them know that you will be their advocate, but don't step in and try to live their lives for them. And so when I see my kids flourishing in that way, when I see them owning all their choices and succeeding and failing on their own terms and growing from that process, it is one of the most satisfying experiences. It is frightening. It is frightening to watch your children walk into a brick wall, but that's what growth is. And, you know, and too many parents try to stop that process. But that's the quickest way for them to learn from owning their mistakes and owning their victories at the same time.
Don't we just love Michelle? She's always going to be our first lady. She is just, I think what I love about Michelle is there's like a calmness in her delivery. And that's what helps us when it comes to messaging. You know, we all can say the same stuff, but our delivery, our tone in which we deliver the message is how it carries through to the person who's listening. So, thank you, Michelle. What did you think about the wisdom that she gave? I know that I was encouraged. I don't necessarily agree with everything that her mother did with her and her brother growing up. I remember the first time at, I think at 11, I let Isaiah go to school by himself on the train. Oh my goodness. No, not even on the train. I had put him in a cab and thought I lost my child. It was, it was not, I don't know if we can recommend that here in these New York City streets. However, I do understand the response or the meaning she meant about responsibility and giving them a sense of responsibility at a young age. And I think that is what is one of the goals we have as parents when raising children, when raising adults, is that we want to be able to teach them not only the fundamentals for them to be good people, but for the fundamentals for them to be able to be progressive and learn and make mistakes on their own. When she said that she likes this age or this stage right now, I had to think about that. I definitely miss certain stages in life, but I don't know if I would want to go back to any of those stages. I know teenagehood was very difficult for me and my firstborn, which made it difficult for the other two. Even though we all made it through, I think that we're in such a great place now, definitely because of the hardship along the way, but also the blessings that we learned through those hardships in regards to understanding and patience, you know? I love how she says that now she's an advisor and the freedom that comes with watching and enjoying her children be adults and stepping back and letting her kids be, not being this helicopter parent. And remember, we discussed that a few weeks back when Cornell was with us about possibly putting the phone on mute so that sometimes we could just hold back even from input, just being a listening or a sounding board to our adult children. I want to go into this further, but before we do, let's go to a break.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
Yeah, welcome. Hi.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age, some others don't.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
So when I think about the different stages, again, yes, I am grateful for the different stages that we were able to get through. And I do like the stage that I'm in right now, the certain things and the certain kinds of conversations that I now have with my 20-year-old daughter that I'm looking forward to us getting to as she becomes older. The conversations I have with both my sons at the age that they're in when we talk about life. I'm enjoying watching them be adults. Because like Quinnell said, when they are ready, they will come back. And I realize that that is true, even at the age that they're at now. They call me, they check on me, they still ask for advice. So this position right now of not being the everyday parent, but the advisory position, the fact that I'm there, I think is a little credit to me being somewhat of a good parent. I did something right because they call now. They ask now for advice, for love, for comfort, for grace, for encouragement, just to say hi. I remember last week we said, there was a video that I showed that the guy said, if your kids call you back, that's a level of success. So when I think about my life right now with my children, even with the heartaches we had, which were they heartaches or were they just life experiences that I've had as an adult, that I've had as a person, and now I've had as a person who happens to be an adult who happens to be a parent raising 3 other people. And in that parenting, raising 3 other people, remember again, I wasn't by myself. I was a divorced parent, but I co-parent all the way up until even now. So that's also a benefit and sometimes a catch-22. Because sometimes we all think that co-parenting, that's the best, that's the greatest. And I think for the most part, ideally it is. But when you have 2 different households or even 2 different ways of believing or feeling about things, even within the same household, I'm going to tell you a secret. I know a couple of parents who wish they were single parents. I know a couple of parents that once one of their parents made the transition, that they had a level of ease when it came to now raising their adult children. Because sometimes that can actually be what's difficult when it comes to raising our children, the other parent. So when you can get through the other parent in the same household or a separate household and look at, again, the end result, or maybe not the end result, or one of the ending results of the next stage of another stage that they're going to complete, because we've done our job in the foundation of their adolescent years. My mother did her job for my adolescent years. Since I was out of my household at the age of 15, the rest of my life was on me. Yes, I had a year with my grandmother. Yes, I had a village of angels, elders, shepherds around me growing up that helped, instructed me, helped guide me, helped encourage me along the way. Because I think, it's funny, I think when God knows that you're missing in one area, he fills that void in others. So I think because I did not have that parental advice for the rest of my life from either one of my parents, he gave me these angels along the way as my guides, as these parental figures along the way in my life, which again made me do differently when it came to the raising of my children. And I think that even though my foundation, I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for those 15 years of strict, not so strict, being aware, not being aware, not having me involved in X, Y, and Z, whatever was done for the best of her ability, for what she knew at the time, for what she was given. I'm grateful. Because even if what it did was teach me the opposite, it still gave me a different perspective when raising my children. Now, what is my mother's or my parents' end result to their children? 1 out of 3 ain't bad. No, my brothers are decent people as well. And that was without the helicopter parents. But again, we still have somewhat of a foundation that was given us. Me and my brothers are only 3 years apart. Me and my middle brother are a year apart. Me and my younger brother are 3 years apart. So whatever foundation I was given, they was given because we were right then and there. And when I left the house at 15, they left the house maybe 2 or 3 years, 2 years really soon after that. So again, for the majority of that small pocket of life, the foundation that they were given, the foundation I was given, they was given. And I believe even with the things that they went through in life, that their foundation still kept them covered to the adults that they are now. So in the way that I'm raising my children or the way that I'm raising my adults, when I look back, and here is our Jesus moment. Let's bring it. Woo! Our Jesus moment. When I think about as a whole the Jesus moment, it took me to not Ephesians. It took me to Deuteronomy. It took me to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 through 9. And I'm going to paraphrase. That these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lay down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your house and on your gates. And where I thought I failed was because I didn't take my kids to the Kingdom Hall every week. Because I didn't take my kids to church every week. Because I allowed my children to partake in Christmas and Thanksgiving. And that's pretty much it, that they do with their father and that they do with me. So I felt that because I lacked in those things, that I didn't do enough, that I didn't give them enough spiritually. Because I didn't give them the routine and the regiment that I had growing up. But the routine and the regimen I had growing up didn't guarantee anything for me. So the routine and regimen that I did not give my children still allowed them to be good and wholesome people. Because I spoke about the love of God, the love of Jehovah all day, every day. I talked about being righteous. I talked about the sacrifice that Christ made in giving up his life and what that gave us and the hope of the resurrection and living in paradise. I talked to them and I shared scriptures with them and I gave them opportunity to make the choice of Bible study. After each one of them went through their rites of passage, which is also a spiritual pilgrimage, my daughter decided to get baptized. My daughter decided to have the Jehovah's Witnesses come into our home and study the Bible. Now, they might not be diligent in that today at 2023, but the beauty is of my exploration in the scriptures, my exploration in connecting closer to Jehovah God happened over a course of time, happened over a course of years. I might have become closer to serving Jehovah now in my life. I remember in the movie Ali, right? Will Smith is depicting Ali. And there's a scene in the movie where Ali is in Africa and he has this woman that he's talking to and he says that Islam found him too young. Because he had a problem, being faithful to his wife. Because he was attracted to women, but he was a faithful spiritual man who still, wasn't ready for the dedication. So, I'm grateful that on their own, they chose to look and understand the scriptures and their relationship with the Creator. Let's take a break.
How you feel on the inside is just as important to me as how you feel on the outside.
Oh, Daddy. I'm grown up in every way, care and take care of you. I'm grown up and I know you're there. You're grown up and you know I care. 'Cause it's you and me and me and you. So when you are okay or not okay, I'll take care of you.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Hey everyone. Before we go to our next segment, I just wanted to finish one thought in the Jesus moment that I wanted you to really get at home. Again, since I was a regular routine in life talking about God in our house, when I talked about, is that just enough? Sometimes folks think that it's not. But teaching your children how to love God is a whole life process. Don't just regulate it to family Bible study or church on Sunday mornings. Parenting your kids to know and love Jesus is something you never stop doing. So that is my goal and that is my hope as a parent, that I never stop teaching and showing the impact of what Christ and serving Jehovah God is in your life, and hoping that leading by example is ultimately what gives my children successful lives as an adult. All right, guys, here it is. You ready for our 5th installment of Did You Know? Did you know? I'm really enjoying this segment, and this particular topic it's a part 2 off of Know Your Rights, because the Know Your Rights got so much hits and reshares on TikTok that I felt like this was a subject that we needed to come back to. But I wanted to talk about our constitutional rights, and the reason why I wanted to discuss what our constitutional rights are is because when I Googled what the amendments were, right, it had 10 amendments, but there was still more, 14, 15, 16, 17, much, much more than the initial 10. And when I Google how much of us know what our rights are or what of the amendments that we don't know, it said that poor knowledge of the First Amendment rights, less than half, 40% of people name freedom of religion, what was lacking that people didn't know about their first or their constitutional rights. And it mentioned it was poor knowledge of the First Amendment rights. Less than half, 40% named freedom of religion. A third, 33%, named the right to assembly. And just over a quarter, 28% named freedom of press. And less than 1 in 10, 9% knew the right to petition the government. So even though we have 10 listed as prime, there are so much more that we should really take the time to Google, take the time to go to the library, take the time to research to see how they impact our day-to-day life. So I'm just gonna kind of briefly go through 10 of them. The First Amendment being, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, freedom of speech, the press, or the right of people to peacefully assemble, and the petition the government for a remnant of grievousness. So we kind of all know that one, that we have the right of free speech, except for yelling fire in a movie theater. Our Second Amendment is the right of people to keep and bear arms. Now, some people think that we don't have this in certain states, but that actually is not correct. So we can all have guns if we go through the legal, proper ways of having them. The Third Amendment, no soldier in a time of peace be quartered in anyone's house without the consent of the owner. Fourth Amendment, the right of people to be secure. Let me say this again. Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Pretty much, you need a warrant. We talked about that also with Know Your Rights. The Fifth Amendment protects against self-incrimination. The Sixth Amendment, in criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial. The Seventh Amendment protects protects trial by jury for the amendment objective was to preserve a distinction between the responsibilities of the court deciding matters of law and the jury, such as deciding matters of fact. That's the Seventh Amendment. The Eighth, excessive bail shall not be required. Ninth, and this is hyphenated explanations. Do your research and go for yourself to find out how these amendments affect your day-to-day life. Ninth Amendment, the existence of the written Constitution should not be treated or an excuse for not still extending someone's human rights. The government can't take away the rights of the American people that are not specifically listed in the U.S. Constitution. And the 10th Amendment allows the powers not specifically given to the federal government to be given to the states and the people of the states. It allows for the states to create specific guidelines and regulations separate from the federal government. Now, if you're not understanding all the details to those explanations, again, I advise you to go and do the research for yourself. Find out why these rights are important for you to know, again, in your day-to-day living here in the United States of America. So that's it, everyone. We finished another episode of our show. Woo! That was awesome. I had a good time. This is the part of the show that I need all of you to, do what? What do I need you guys to do? Follow, like, and share. Follow, like, and share. And on that note, I appreciate you. Go to the Facebook group page to see the behind scenes, ask your inbox questions, see what we're discussed when we are, setting up our shots to bring you our weekly program, and just overall kind of just to peep and see what's going on in the next chapter of my life, as well as the community that I share with you via Facebook. Follow me on YouTube and follow me on Instagram. I appreciate all of you guys. Before we go, I just, like I said, want to take one time to say that this journey I'm on definitely seems like a personal one. But I know in my heart that I am not the only one that is going through these next chapters of our lives. So in that, I'm grateful that you allow me to share my next chapters as you guys share your next chapters with me every day when you see me in the street, or when you inbox me, or when you DM me the good job that I'm doing, that you guys are all doing by supporting this effort through public access television. I appreciate all of you guys. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. This is the next chapter where we discuss Shades of Gray. I am your host, Minister Kat, a.k.a. Kitty Rose, and from all of us here at BronxNet Studios, at our new home at La Centrale here in the South Bronx, I welcome you all to be safe and to stay focused, and I will see you all next week. All right, guys. Mwah. Thank you all for being here.
So I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically. Through hallways and alleys, dark days I carry, sharp pains and bellies. All days be heavy when you're programmed to survive. Legendary ciphers get the MCs in the jars. The city never sleeps, slept from 1 to 5 when COVID hit the block and we had